In this video, I'm going to take you on a tour of the nursery. But before we go and have a look at what is going on and how we are sorting out the plant material, I want to just explain where we are in the season here in late March in the UK. Hello, I'm Rosie Hardy. This is Rosie Hardy Gardening. If you enjoy our videos, please do subscribe to the channel. So what I want to talk about is the season we have here in the UK this year. Now this will be very helpful for other people who are in the UK understanding what is happening and what we've got. Now we've had a very wet winter again, which, you know, yes, all of us are going, gosh, we really don't want any more of that, because the previous year it was very wet and then it maintained and stayed grey right the way through. This year, thankfully, we have ended up with some brilliant sunshine, which means we've got light levels. And when you get good light levels, you get good growing seasons. And that is really where we're at. The only trouble is we're now at the middle of March. And when we got to about middle end of February, we suddenly had what I always describe as a false spring. So we had all of the galanthus, the snowdrops looking fantastic. The weather warmed up. We got really warm days. We also got some warm evenings as well. And then suddenly back into minus conditions, so we're back into frosts again, but we still got really good light levels. Then here on the nursery, this was compounded with the fact that we were getting really cold easterly winds and north and northeasterly winds, all of those cold, very drying. And so you suddenly find that the top surface of everything is getting very, very dry. Plants are sitting there and they're almost hunkering back down again. They start to grow and then they suddenly get the frost and the cold and they go, whoops, I've come out of my pot too early, and they go back down. And plants are very good at showing you that they're cold because the green of their foliage will start to look a little bit blue. So like we go blue in the cold, so do they. And it's this false spring and this false idea of thinking, oh great, it's getting warm, it's really good, and people suddenly think, right, let's get everything moved outside, and suddenly things get frosted. And that's really not what you need to be looking at. So remember always that, you know, you don't want to be moving stuff out fast and not protecting it at this time of the year. So if you are starting to thinking about hardening your plant material off, do it very gradually. It's that move it out and there's nice sunshine, it's a warm day, move it back into protection. Move it into cold frames. Make sure those cold frames you can just adjust and have them open but close them at night. Have your horticultural fleece at hand, because every now and again there will be quite a sharp frost. Now it'll be different from the south of England right the way through to the north of England. There's quite a gradient difference all the way through, and the best thing to do is just check outside. You know, the weather forecast isn't always accurate. Go outside, have a feel. Just because the books say you do this in March, you do this in April, no, look at what the seasons are. Look at your hedgerows. Look at what is flowering. That will give you far more evidence of what is happening and how you should be treating all of your plant material than any book which tells you have to do it on this date or that date. So when we go out onto the nursery tour, I will show you how our plants are doing and what they're looking like at the moment. So we're going to go out onto the nursery beds and we'll look at the older plants to start off with, those that have overwintered and have had all of their, or some of them have had all of their old material cut off them, and we'll see how they are now progressing in their way of growing through into the spring. Here we are on the nursery itself, the nursery beds, and these are last year's free growing plants. There's a mixture here of herbaceous stuff and the odd shrub, and this is just showing you how much life is actually coming back on these plants themselves. Some of them have still got their old tops on them like this, these are Veronicastrum, but they aren't showing any growth at the base yet. Some of the things like the Adenophyra here has got lots of lovely growth coming through on it, and that is brilliant. So that just shows you they're ready to go, they want to get going. And it's quite good because the Adenophyra are going to be in flower a lot earlier than the Veronicastrum, so you wouldn't expect to see the growth coming through on those yet either. And then we've got the shrub here. This is Cotinus, and the Cotinus is a lovely woody shrub. This one's going to have pale lemon leaves, and it is just starting to put lovely little buds on it here. So that is great, and that is what I would expect. The clematis in the front there, they're also sending up shoots. So they're going to actually be cut back. So even though there are some long arms on those with lovely shoots on, we don't want them to be like that. We want the central pieces. So they will be cut back, given a cane. And some of these will be given a new repot as well. And when we get to the Rudbeckias, well, the Rudbeckias are looking fantastic. You've got that wonderful crown of leaf in the centre, good dark green, healthy leaf coming through. The old leaf is dying off around the side, and it will just push through. And so those are great. And this is the time of year when you really start to think, yes, everything's coming back to life. It's beautiful, it's wonderful. You know, I just love this time of year. Spring is that time of year when suddenly it all starts to green up and the trees are starting to put on their leaves. The birds are in full song. It is fabulous. It's a really cracking time of year for everything to be starting and looking really good. This patch here is Actea, and this is all of the old flower and leaf stems from last season. We haven't got to this patch yet to tidy them up, but this is on the jobs to do, so we will be tidying them all up. These don't need repotting. Some of the plants that I looked at a little bit earlier will need repotting. There's a little bit of weeding need doing as well, and that's the one thing that happens as soon as all of our beautiful plants start to grow, so do all of the weeds. And it's that time of year when you've got to catch up. You've got to, you know, the weeds are really difficult. If you've got weeds in your garden and you see them, take them out straight away. Don't leave it for another 2 days. They'll have grown twice as big. So get them out. That's the key thing. Now these are just starting to put on really beautiful foliage coming through at the bottom here. Lovely purple cut foliage coming through. That is great, and I really love it. So this, in another 2 weeks' time, will be a completely tidy, re-rowed up, swept underneath, ready for sales for the rest of the year. So weeding is really important in your own garden at this time of the year. Just be very careful if you've got young plants like this, well, older plants which are coming through in the crowns. Don't damage those plants. Get the weeds out carefully from around the plants, and then that will make it all much cleaner and much better for your garden. But do keep on top of the weeding. In contrast to the plants that have sat over winter and we will then be tidying up, we have all of this material here, which they look fantastic with their tops, but these are newly potted plants. So these are ones which have been bare root. Now by bare root, that means that they were grown in a field, they've been dug up, and then they have been shipped to us, and we are then putting them into containers. And these ones here are naughtier. They look fantastic. They're looking really good. But at the moment, they won't have put on enough root at the bottom here to come through. But you do have a wonderful top there. So these will take a little bit longer to be ready for sale, and it'll probably be at least another 4 to 6 weeks before something like this, which is bare root potted, put into the peat-free compost, has got enough roots on it for it to be able to be sold so that someone can put it into their garden. At this time of year, we are dealing with a lot of Chelsea flower show plants, and it's not for us. These we are growing, contracted growing for designers who are doing their displays. Some of them are doing large gardens, some of them are doing smaller gardens, and quite often we will get replicas of plants that are needed for one garden and for another garden. But what we do is we make sure that each person, each designer has their own lot of plant material which is then chosen from. Now it's not all about flower. In fact, a lot of the time it is about foliage and filler and how to get plants underneath all the shrubs and everything else to make it look like a garden that is growing. Not only are we growing herbaceous stuff, so like this Alchemilla, this is a really sweet little one, this is Alchemilla erythropoda, and by the time we get to Chelsea Flower Show this will have filled right over the side of the pots and it will look a fantastic little clump. It's never going to get huge, that one. But we also grow annuals for the designers as well, and this is a poppy. This one is a really beautiful grey white one. It's called Amazing Grey, and this one is just starting to put buds in. So this was our first batch. We've got a second batch and a third batch so that we can get them into flower correctly for the show itself. Other things such as this little sweet one here, this Semi-Aquilegia, this particular plant is actually putting on a bit of bud. So we are going to be moving a lot of this material outside. At the moment they're quite pot thick. We will eventually move them apart so that they aren't touching each other, so they've all got their own room. And behind me here are the huge big Angelicas. About 3 days ago they were only about 20 centimetres, 6 inches high. Now they've gone right up to nearly 18 inches. That just shows you just a little bit of warmth and they will start growing away. So we have to watch that. We also have to watch and make sure, because once they're inside they get soft growth, and if we move them outside and we get some frosts we can damage that plant material. So it's a juggling act, moving in, moving out. Let's head outside and see what plants we've got outside. So here we have a lot of plant material, again for designers. There's a mixture of different designers that we're growing for here. You can see big batches of plant material. Now these are outside, so these are much harder grown, but we will be needing some of these to come into flower. So we have got Centuria, for instance, like this one here, and it's putting on beautiful rosettes. Now we don't want them to go too far too fast. They've got another 8-9 weeks before they're required, so we will keep them quite hard. Sometimes we might be having to repot these up, but we haven't done it yet because it's only just starting. We're only just getting the light levels, and it's really good to have this plant material hard. Then we will take half of it inside and get it to come up, then we will bring it back out, and then we'll take the other half in and get that. And in that way we're able to monitor and keep the plant material at a point where it is usable for the people on the gardens. A lot of these things, you know, you've got something like this, it looks completely empty. This is an epimedium. This will suddenly come up through. So these are what I like to call my pots of potential. And this is where you have to understand plants are amazing. They keep on going. They will grow back every single year. They will be there for you, but you've just got to hold your nerve and just think, no, it will do as it's supposed to do. It will grow up, it will flower, and they will look fantastic for all of the gardens these are going on. So with a lot of this material, you can see they are quite close together, and this is where I mean when I say we're going to double space them. So if it was in a tray like this, we would take every other one out, and that way you would get your better spacing so that the plants, I didn't do that one quite correctly, did I? Those ones will now be having a lot of space around them if they're going to stay in that size pot. If they're going to go into a bigger pot, then they will be spaced even more. So looking at these, so these again are Centuria, but you can see the leaf is touching here. We don't want that with show plants. So how these will be spaced out is, again, it will go to what we call double spacing, and they will have that amount of room around them to grow into. This way they are not interfering with each other, and they get a good lot of wind and they get all the light that they require to grow perfectly. Now we're getting into late spring and our propagation is in full swing. We have to harden off all of the plugs that we have produced. So these are wonderful plugs. They are great. This one is Artemisia. Look at that root system on there. It's fantastic. So these have all been rooted in the propagation house where it is warm, they are all cozy, but now they're going to have to go and fend for themselves outside in the big bad world. So basically what we are doing is we bring them out of the heated tunnel into the non-heated tunnel, and they sit here, and this is not frost free, so they are going to get quite cold in here, and they literally, all of these sit here so that they are hardened off, ready, so that when we go through and put them onto the potting machine and get them all potted up into their nice new pots, they are then going to go straight outside without any protection at all. And that is what we have to do, because if we don't harden them off and we have them really soft and fleshy coming out of the propagation house and we went and put them outside, we've had -3, -4 frost. Yes, they may not be for very long, but it's enough to wipe out all of that top growth and probably kill off a lot of things. So hardening off is really important. We do it as professionals. You need to do it in your own garden with what you're propagating, and especially with young seedlings. Make sure you harden them off before you put them outside. And if you are interested in propagation, then please do check out my propagation course. So the hardened off plugs are being potted up into this size pot. This is what we call our 1 litre pot, and the plants are put right into the centre of the pot like so. And then once they have been finished potted, they have this bark on the top. This bark is helping stop weed. It's also helping retain moisture in the compost itself. So this is really important. So the plugs are really just there. Very quickly they'll start to grow away, both the top growth and the bottom growth. As soon as we've got roots at the bottom, that is then a saleable plant. We've just come into the prop house to have a look at the cuttings, and basically here we've got a lot of really lush cuttings. So like I was saying, we wouldn't be potting these ones straight away, and this is what you'd also have in your own greenhouses. You'd have some really lush stuff. So these are the ones that you're wanting to then harden off. These go next door into the cold tunnel for at least 2 weeks before we then pot them on. So that is the sort of time scale I would suggest you are looking at for hardening off your own material. It might take a bit longer than that, but do make sure that it gets hardened off, because otherwise you'll be really disappointed that you've gone and taken all that effort into propagating and you've gone and lost it because you didn't do the hardening off. So these ones are all ready to move. We also have on the mist benches over here all the young stuff which has just been taken and will be rooting down and then be moved out onto the floor like this. Here are all of the young cuttings that I spoke about. These are all on the mist bench. So these ones are all going to root down over the next few weeks, probably only a couple of weeks actually, to be honest. So we're not going to do a full tour of the propagation here, because I want to do an April propagation so that you can see what you can be doing during April. And also we will take a look at the cuttings that I did last month and see how they are coming along. So please do look out for that in a couple of weeks' time. Thank you very much for watching, and please do subscribe to the channel. If you want to watch another video of mine, YouTube thinks this one is perfect for you.